Can it only go for 16 hours?
I don't know.
Dinner, fried dinner, and I brought work.
Oh, dinner. Oh, good.
I want to share a video.
We have to get more comfortable chairs here. Are you sending them to Texas? Gonna send them? She'll hit you.
No. My road is.
All right, everybody, we're going to get started in just about a minute, so please have a seat. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming on such a beautiful afternoon. We're going to have about a half-hour presentation followed by question and answers. And you'll see there's a bunch of maps around that will get more specific with some of the neighborhoods. We have John Goodrich here, our consultant, Leslie Rowell, our health agent, and Rob Adams, our engineer, will be, he's at the school committee meeting right now, and he'll be here shortly. So, and thank you to our team over here, Sherry Prada and Braden Witt from DPW. And Lynn Martin, of course, sir. So for those of you that came in, make sure you take a look at that 1947 map in the back of the first sewer system designed in Provincetown. This is before Route 6 was there. This is before the seashore was there, and it's interesting to look at what it looked like back at that time. There's also a town meeting booklet back there of how the sewer was voted down in 1948 because it cost too much money. It was $900,000 back then for the whole system. All right. So here we go. Here's Provincetown Harbor, and here's our community. Here's our densely populated neighborhoods, and you know, it's a beautiful place to live. I think this is why we're here in many ways. Is we're out on a peninsula, and we're vulnerable to the weather, to the elements, and this is where we want to be. So why is this so important? This proposed project will upgrade the town's existing vacuum sewer system and make sewer system available to all properties in Provincetown. This is a long-term solution that promotes public health, protects our environment, supports housing and economic development with managed growth, and provides coastal resiliency for decades to come. So what are the benefits of this system? It increases the reliability of the vacuum sewer system downtown. Now, obviously, this summer we had a sewer emergency. We had to close things down for a couple days. And so the new modernization work that's ongoing right now will minimize these types of downtimes and add alarms to buffer tanks and will decrease downtime of system in the future. The expansion project provides 50% increase in treatment and disposal capacity to provide continued year-round housing, workforce housing, and economic development with managed growth. Doubles the number of potential users on the sewer system to help user charges remain affordable, and greatly reduces risk of environmental pollution for our ground and surface waters. Reduce risk of on-site pollution from future flooding. So why now? Unprecedented state and federal funding is available right now. 25 million in grants and subsidies available once this is passed at town meeting. There's DEP Title V changes coming up. Between 1978 and 95, the codes required larger tanks, leaching areas, and reserve areas, and it would be very difficult for some properties to actually replace their Title V. DEP is now proposing also revised code which will require best available technologies to denitrify systems with a nitrogen problem here in Cape Cod. And also climate change storm and flood risks, on-site systems are vulnerable. And these systems are flooded that depend on the soil treatment areas and the leaching fields. They don't work. They don't purify. They don't do what they're supposed to do. Cape Cod Commission, this is from their 2015 report. Cape Cod has a water problem. Our peninsula is being poisoned by nitrogen, pretty strong language. The largest source is septic systems. This is not only an environmental problem, if not addressed in a timely way, it's likely to harm Cape's economy through decline in fishing, shellfishing, tourism, and property values. So just a quick overview of nitrogen pollution on this side over here, or actually let's start on this side over here. Healthy, clear water, dense eelgrass beds, which are critical for habitat, abundant fish life, enjoyable place for recreation. And on the other side is nitrogen polluted waters, cloudy and murky water. Eelgrass can't grow, low oxygen levels, and fish and shellfish will disappear. So as you see nitrogen pollute our waters, you will start to see this happen. And in a few slides, I'll show you a location here in town. This is a map that's over on this table over here showing the number of cesspools, substandard systems, and older systems in Provincetown. There's over 400 of them. There's over 100 cesspools in town. Some people are surprised by that. And looking at the comparison of with the nitrogen problem going on right now in Cape Cod and here in Provincetown, you can see that cesspools do not do any treatment whatsoever. This is a comparison of nitrogen discharge into our environment. So you can see cesspools, and this is milligrams per liter of nitrogen, which won't mean a lot to many people, but that's a very high number. It's higher than the Cape Cod Commission or DEP would like to see. If you have a Title V system, a lot of people are surprised to see that that also does not take care of the nitrogen. It decreases it very slightly. The alternative systems that DEP is proposing to denitrify currently 19 milligrams per liter. And the new proposed systems with the best available technology is going to get it down to 11 milligrams per liter. Our current wastewater treatment plant gets it down to 5 milligrams per liter or lower. So it's just showing there's a big difference between what our sewer plant does and what these older systems, on-site systems do. This is a current map from the Association for the Preservation of Cape Cod. You can see Cape Cod's got a lot of areas that are in trouble. They need a lot of help. They need to get some systems in place, and towns are scrambling right now to put sewer systems in and take care of their on-site systems. You can see Provincetown has one, that those little red things mean unacceptable, and these are monitoring stations. And that outfall is, I believe, over on the east end, and this may refer to Pilgrim Lake or East Harbor. These pictures were taken by a friend of mine with her daughter this summer. So for those people that say there's no nitrogen contamination in Provincetown, take a look at this. It was a hot summer, and this is what it looks like. This is what happens. Eelgrass will start dying underneath this, and the habitats will die. And then you'll have an odor that comes along with it. The other issue that's going on is flood risk, obviously. This is a map. We have one over here. You're not going to be able to see much on this, but it overlays the areas where there is flood risk and properties that are currently on on-site systems. And as we were talking about, on-site systems don't do well in flood conditions. You need the soil to handle the waste before it gets down into the groundwater. This is the 1947 Provincetown plan in the back of the room. And I thought it was very interesting. I was reading in the booklet at the annual town meeting on February 10th, 1947. They gave the charge to the Committee on Sewer and Disposal. And they called this putting sewer in Provincetown the naughtiest problem that has ever confronted the community. And naughty is not the term that, you know, when my grandmother said I was a naughty boy, this is not like K-N-O-T-T-Y. And I had to look it up because I'd never heard that term. And it basically means a really difficult problem that may not have a solution. Has anybody heard that term before, maybe? Right. So Provincetown, 1947, it took 50 years before the town meeting, it came back to town meeting and they actually approved the plan. For those of you who are living here in the 90s, we remember that beaches were closed, swimming wasn't good, shellfish areas were closed, mounded systems, remember the mounded systems on the harbor? Not a good time. But 2000 was the year that Provincetown voted to start expanding the sewer. And then it's gone through 5 phases over the last 20 years. Phase 1, sewer went online. 2003, downtown central vacuum system. 2008, McMillan Pier, Shank Painter, Seashore Point, Province Landing. 2013, pre-equalization tank, Beach Point, Bradford Street. And 2015, West End Extension, Shank Painter Road. And then right now, phase 5, we put in a peak flow storage tank to handle the large flows in the summer, central vacuum system upgrades, and further connections. And that's work's going on right now. So Provincetown's unique approach, I won't get into the history too much, but the sewer was initially planned for just the existing downtown businesses and only others who wanted to connect. Uniquely in Massachusetts, the sewer district was defined by those who connect, not by the abutters. When the sewer district was expanded during later phases, town officials kept this checkerboard approach. No general fund taxpayer funding except costs for town buildings was used for any of the sewer expansion. Grants and user betterments have funded all the capital costs, and many areas have remained too expensive to serve with this funding approach. The rooms tax initially covered the shortfall from this delayed revenue. The current wastewater treatment facility, for those of you who are interested in a tour of our beautiful wastewater treatment plant, there's a sign-up sheet in the back. Has anybody been to the wastewater treatment plant? Other than, no? A couple of people, okay. It's really worth seeing. It's incredible what's going on out there. I like this type of stuff, but some of you actually, it's really important, I think, to see what's going on out there and what happens to all of our wastewater. We're advanced as far as Cape Cod goes. I think most communities would want to be where we are at, that we have 50% of our town sewered. So please sign up on the sheet back there. And Sherry will be giving us a great tour of the plant sometime in the next couple of weeks. This is out on Route 6. These are the current disposal beds along Route 6. You can see them at the dog park, underneath the Jerome Smith parking lot, underneath the soccer field, and down at the end of Howland Street on the other side toward the seashore. Yes.
There.
Yeah. It's hard to, yeah, it's a little hard to see. It's way over there. Current properties served by the sewer. Half of the properties, around 1,000 properties, are currently served. There's a couple of maps over here that more specifically outline that. Properties interested in connecting. DPW did a survey back in October with the Board of Health and looked at who's interested in connecting to the sewer, who wants to connect. And this was a study that showed that there's people all throughout the town that want to connect. It wasn't really just one area or the other. So that was one of the motivations to start looking at this project. So as we look at this project, what were the priorities of DPW? Environmental protection, obviously, first and foremost. That's what we're doing. We got to take care of our waste. Converting Board of Health, public health failures, and ACOs, and obviously keeping costs low for taxpayers. Maximizing grant opportunities, make betterment costs fair and reasonable. Half the people have already paid their betterment and connection costs. So, as we look at the betterment costs and connection costs, we have to be fair with what we've offered in the past over the last 20 years. Keeping the operation and maintenance costs low for property owners. Resilient system for flood risk and climate change. Increased system capacity through managed growth. Additional flows for affordable community workforce housing. Year-round economic development with managed growth. So the modernization is a part of the process here. The new expansion, the modernization will focus on the vacuum system, and the upgrades to the CVS will be electrical backups, equipment for power failures and surges, install flood protection barriers, add alarms on buffer tanks to notify DPW of problems, survey vacuum system and pump stations to identify repairs, replacements, upgrade equipment, install a sequencing batch reactor, grease mitigation, and we're undertaking an independent study to review the future operations and options for downtown sewer, including potential options to redirect some of the flow to the gravity sewer during the high volume of the summer. Sewer expansion plan, treatment system, additional SBR and satellite facilities to increase capacity by 50%. So we'll be going from 750,000 gallons per day to 1.125 million gallons per day. Disposal system will be moved to Mata Field. This will not affect the recreation. It'll be all be underground, just like the soccer field. Collection system connections will be made available to all properties in town. We have a rough schedule of how those will go.
Jim, excuse me, SBR.
Oh, sequencing batch reactor, sorry. Sequencing batch reactor is a type of process that gets the waste so it denitrifies the waste, and it's all in one big unit. It's just it's the type that fits best on a small site like this. You know, other towns, you might have a lot of land. You can put out other types of aeration and denitrification units. This is all happening in one unit. So this will be a second SBR that'll go out at the Route 6 site. Project cost, $75 million. 25 million is expected by grants and subsidies. State revolving fund, USDA, American Rescue Plan Act, bipartisan infrastructure law, municipal vulnerability preparedness program, and Cape Cod and Islands Water Protection Fund. These are all a lot of big money grants that are available right now. $45 million will be paid by betterments and other sources. We're estimating $5 million Chapter 90 paving funds and room taxes. We'll be looking at any other grants we can get our hands on. So how much will it cost me? So each of you in the room who have not connected to the sewer will be paying a betterment cost, a connection cost, and then ongoing sewer user fees. The betterment and connection costs pay for the capital cost of the sewer, and the sewer user fees pay for ongoing operation and maintenance costs of the facility. So betterments, there are some handouts up front or in the back. And this just gives you an idea of some of the costs for a one-bedroom house or condo. These are based on Title V flows, 110 gallons per day. Betterment rate is estimated at $65 per gallon. Total cost of the betterment, $7,150. If you pay it over 20 years in a low-interest loan, it'll be about $358 a year. Obviously, this goes up as a three-bedroom house. You're looking at more closer to $1,073 per year, and that'll have an additional 5% interest on outstanding balances. Some people pay it all up front. They can afford it if they have the cash flow. Others cannot. Connection costs. This is very difficult to put in a slide or even determine. This is something that you'll have to have a contractor take a look at your specific situation. But generally, simple installation where your existing pipe is close to the street, minimal landscaping and hardscaping. It can range from $2,500 to $5,000. Typical average installation, for example, an X-ing pipe in the back of the house, some replacing the landscaping. You're looking at $9,500 to $1,200. And more complex, same as above with tight work area, difficult to get in there with machinery, a lot of removal and replacement. You're looking closer to $9,500 to $15,000. Also, some properties may need grinder pumps if you have to pump up to the sewer line. That cost can range from $7,000 to $15,000. A mobile generator costs an additional $5,000 if you're looking at something like that. Sewer user fees. These are basically charged to all sewer users to pay for this ongoing maintenance. It's a sewer charge like a water bill based upon water usage, and this just shows you 1 to 2 bedroom house. If your current yearly water bill is around $300, you're looking at about $350. If you're a seasonal, if you live here seasonally, There's a $225 minimum on your current water bill, and it'll be about $225. Larger houses will go a little more expensive. There's also some fact sheets and handouts on this up front, back. Financial assistance. We're very aware that people are being on fixed incomes, fixed budgets, and are concerned about the costs being served by the sewer. We are looking at it as an existing program for any lower income property owner can delay paying a betterment until their property is transferred. ARPA funds, American Rescue Plan Act funds. The town is exploring ways to create a grant program for Provincetown residents that can be used towards costs associated with connecting to the town sewer program. And then Barnstable County and DEP are also looking at funding sources to help property owners with connection costs right now it's in the form of loans, low interest loans from Barnstable County. So when will I have to connect? So if your Title V is installed after January 1st, 2000, no one with a fully compliant Title V system will need to connect as long as their system passes inspection. So if your Title V system is working and it keeps working, you will not have to, you won't have to connect to the system until it does not pass inspection. The current Board of Health policy requires inspection at the time of property transfer and for certain building permits and for condos every 3 years. Newer Title V system owners will get to delay paying a betterment until they connect the sewer. Yep.
What do you mean by a newer Title V system?
Any system that's installed after 2000. And there'll be another slide coming up. I'll explain it a little more. The proposed Board of Health policy, which will go into effect following a public hearing, would also require all on-site systems to be inspected every 5 years, starting 20 years after installation. For on-site systems that are already older than 20 years, the inspection policy will be phased in, starting with the oldest systems. While newer systems can be expected to last for 20 years and sometimes longer, the increasing risks from climate-induced flooding are expected to worsen this decade, and many people will decide to hook up sooner. On-site systems are not the future for wastewater management in Provincetown, and many property owners may find it beneficial to connect before the flooding risk increases. This is also a handout in the back. I suggest you take a look at this. And this breaks down the categories of when will I have to pay the betterment and when will I have to connect. Cesspools are non-engineering systems. When sewer is available in your neighborhood, you're going to have to connect, and you're going to have to pay the betterment when the sewer is available to your property. For older code older code systems or Title V systems installed between 1995 and 12/31/99, when sewer is available for your property, you'll have to start paying the betterment. But you don't have to connect if it's still operating and passing inspection. For newer Title V systems installed after 2000, January 1st, 2000, pay the betterment when you connect, and you don't have to connect until you fail an inspection. So it gives a lot of fairness to those folks that installed new Title V systems that don't want to. You put a lot of money into these systems, and so we're trying to be very respectful of the investment that you made. When will sewer be available in my neighborhood? Right now, it's in a two-phased approach, and this is all based on these complicated funding models. But 2023 to 2026, the sewers, properties in existing sewer areas will served by gravity sewers, and then 2026 to 2030, all remaining properties. And we do have some maps over here that will delineate which properties will be coming in sooner and which will be coming in later. And we can talk about after we get through this to go around to each neighborhood if you'd like. Cost of on-site collection systems. I'm just putting this up as a comparison that a Title V system, this is an average cost, 2 to 3 bedroom house is about $15,000. An advanced system that has to denitrify, which you're seeing more of these going in Cape Cod, $22,000. and best available technology is around 30,000. This is the proposed system for areas in Cape Cod that are having more serious nitrogen problems like Wellfleet, Dennis, Yarmouth, $30,000, and these are based on a 2 to 3 bedroom house. Key takeaways. So the modernization plan will update our CVS, our central vacuum system, and make it more resilient, less downtime, and it will handle the power surges. The final expansion plan will extend gravity sewer to the remainder of the town. On-site systems are not the future of wastewater management in Provincetown. Unprecedented funding sources are available now. Climate change is expected with sea level rise, groundwater rise, and more severe storms. This also supports the town's goals of creating affordable community and workforce housing and continued economic development through managed growth. If we do not do this now, we will have continued environmental degradation like we're seeing out in Pilgrim Lake or East Harbor from cesspools and substandard systems, swimming, shellfish recreation, economics, property values, etc. On-site systems vulnerable to flooding, that will continue. Many properties with failing systems will not be able to meet the current Title V standards. And that's going to be a real problem when we have a failing system that just doesn't have the room on their property to put a septic tank that's now 1,500 gallons instead of 1,000 gallons, a disposal area that's larger than it was back in the before 2000, 1995, and also have supposed to have a reserve area. I don't know how people that have a failed Title V are going to deal with those situations. That's going to be tough. It'll cost a lot more to expand the sewer in the future. A lot more. I mean, we're talking about other communities up Cape, 100 million, 200 million to put in for their proposals that they're looking at. Sewer user fees are expected to rise in 2026. We have a design, build, operate contract with our current, we're managing our current sewer plant. That contract was done in 2000. We've got it expended for 5 years, and now we're 2026 it ends. And when we do this contract, the prices are going to go up. Existing user fees will be very high. But if everybody's sharing the system, the cost will be more manageable and be lower. No expansion for year-round affordable or workforce housing. So that's the other piece of this. I know that that's an important town goal for many people, and that will not be happening right now if we don't have some type of expansion of the sewer. So thank you so much for this part of it. We're going to open it up to questions and answers, and then we're going to take some time looking at if specific people have questions about their property or their neighborhood. We'll try to answer it the best we can, and we'll take it from there. Does anybody have any questions to kick us off? Yes.
You had a slide that showed the $65 per gallon betterment charge. I understand that that's not what it is right now. Do you have knowledge of what cost 2000 or 2003 and what it actually turned out to be, what the question was, as to what the number was?
John, can you answer that? John Gurich?
Yes, we generally speaking, what happens is that when construction begins, there's an estimated betterment, and half of the initial betterment is assessed then. And then under state legislation, a final betterment is assessed when the construction costs are known. Generally, for our phases, we've done an excellent job of the estimating, and there's been no change in the final betterment. Not adjusting for inflation, because there's been a fair amount of that over the 20 years. In the first phase, the betterments were somewhere in the $35, $39 range. Then it was $45 for the second phase, and I believe into the beginning of the third phase. And then it's been $55 for a number of years, and that's the current rate right now. 65 is what we estimate based upon the combination of grants and subsidies that we're looking at and the construction costs that we're looking at. And we hope that that's where it'll come in.
What you're saying is that what your estimations were previously during the earlier phases, you actually predicted or predicted appropriately, and you're not raising it beyond the level that you had stated at the outset of that phase.
Correct.
Yes, sir. Yes, if you live on a private road, they will be run to your property line, just like a public road. And the private road will be replaced in kind. So if it's dirt road, you will not have paving, you will have dirt road.
So are you saying that the stubbing from the main line goes to the property line?
Yeah, each property will have the stub that will go right to the property line. And that'll be something communicated as we get closer. Engineers will figure out where your system is coming out and where that's coming in. And that's what'll be left for you when you're ready to connect. Yes.
Just wait, let me get to you. We want to be able to, people are online, so I want to make sure they can hear as well.
I have a question, Jim. I got a letter in the mail that said my cost was going to be 18,000. I'm looking up here at a total betterment cost of 21,450. And then, given my property location, I have a feeling that I won't get hooked up until the 2630 time. And so you've already stated that the cost will go up. So what am I looking at to hook up to the sewer?
I'm not sure what,
Population here of very retired people.
I'm not sure what your specific, if the numbers are not matching up with something that you received in the mail, then we need to talk about that offline because that's. All right, well, I'm not sure which one you're. Oh.
The only thing I can think, Susan, is the letter that you may have gotten may not have the correct bedroom amount on it. So we should definitely circle back and check to make sure that the bedroom count that we have in our database is actually what you have. And it should also match.
Letter saying 18 grand. So I understand that cost can go up, but I think what I'm asking you guys is if you're planning to areas after 30, then we kind of need to know what our concrete figure is going to be so that we can plan on, paying for it.
Well, I just,
That might be a real focus.
Yeah, this is an excellent question you're asking. And we have to figure out what that letter was because it does, it's not something that we're aware of as to why you got a letter with 18,000, but that's something that the sewer department can check into. So the number that was up here is the estimate for all of the properties that will be served 2023 through 2030 if at the $65. So what's going to happen is that in 2025, early in that year, that's when we will get the last grant and subsidy award. So we'll know at that point what all of the grants and subsidies are. We can calculate the final betterment then. It will apply to all the properties that are connecting in this expansion.
So is there any way that you can, for your betterment, I know it's going to happen in my neighborhood, whether I like it or not. And it is from a certain standpoint, from some of the committees I am on, a good thing. So is there any way that you can establish an escrow fund that you can start paying into?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we've done that before, but it's certainly something we can look into. That makes sense. Good idea.
Hi, actually I have two questions. First one is the town paying to run the sewer line up the road to the properties?
That's included, yes.
So that's gonna be included, no, because I'm the only house on my road and it's a hell of a distance, so I was just wondering that. Question number two, you have these flow for like a 3-bedroom house condo. But the betterments are based just on an average, not on what your actual usage will be?
Yeah, the betterments will be based on your Title V flow, which is based on the number of bedrooms on your property.
So even if like your water, like my water bill tends to be a lot lower than a lot of people's, there's 2 of us in the house. I mean, I don't use a lot of water, but my betterment, because legally my house is a 4-bedroom house, will be a lot
Right.
higher.
So you'll be saving money when you get to the sewer user fees.
Yeah,
So
no,
that'll
I
be-
understand
If
that.
you're not using a lot of water.
Yeah.
Those costs will be lower, and that will be based on your water usage.
Okay, now I'm gonna be really selfish and ask the third. Where is the sewer processing plant or whatever expanding? Is it expanding at its current location? Where is that gonna be located?
It's expanding to, on Route 6, part of it will be expanding on-site. And then there'll also be where the current soccer field is, there'll be a satellite facility. There'll be doing some primary treatment there. And that'll be the major expansion. And then the disposal system will be up in Mata Field right now. That's the plan. Yep. Yeah, the soccer field on Route 6. Yeah, not Mata Field. Dennis?
Infrastructure. I would like to know more, now that you mentioned it, more about that infrastructure there on the, what is currently the soccer field. Do you have any idea of the scale, the size, the height, and so on?
Yep, we have some plans over here on the table we can show you. We have Rob here yet? Our engineer? He can get into more of the detail, but we do have some plans over here and we can talk about that, but that's basically a primary treatment facility. We can go over what that's going to look like. We have some preliminary plan drawings over here, and that's a good question.
I was wondering how this affects recategorizing houses. Like I have a 1-bedroom and I'd like to make it a 2-bedroom. But from what I understand, that's not available because of water or sewage uses. I'm not sure, but does this open up some of those opportunities?
It may open up. Leslie, would you rather handle this one?
Hi. So we've been under a state of limited capacity, meaning that there's not many gallons to share among property owners that have an interest in extra bedrooms like you're describing. Although there is a process that describes how to ask for additional gallons, and it's a bit onerous. The hope going forward, if we had additional gallons, that we could manage our growth management for applications like you're describing in an efficient and effective way. So the current status is an easy no. You don't really have the gallons available to put another bedroom on unless you go and get an engineer and design a site plan for a septic system that you're not really going to install, to apply for a permit to ask for the gallons that are demonstrated on the plans that you're not really going to install. Growth management would continue as we have more gallons available with discrete categories that allow us to give out gallons for applications in the future. And I am very hopeful that it leaves out the make-believe septic design plan step. We have to wait and see, but you may have more options in the future if this goes forward.
Hi. Well, first of all, I think the context is really should be appreciated by all of us that you guys are continuing this tradition. Provincetown's been the leader, maybe all of Massachusetts on this stuff. And there's opportunities I know you guys are chasing down that are trying to lessen the blow and enhance the environment. It's critical work. I'm curious about the 100% scenario for a number of interests in mind. And that question I have essentially is, and I'm sorry, it's a bit complicated, but With respect to nutrient loading and with respect to responsible sewer development, you have at least half a dozen areas within town that are extremely sparse, for example, and that because of their sparseness and separatedness, they're gonna result in higher individual homeowner costs potentially, as well as higher municipal costs to actually get the feeders out there. And so the question I have is sort of what potential analysis has been done around that? Not just because certain people should be off the hook, because I think we all need to be, whether it's through assessments or our property taxes or whatever, need to be supporting this. But the more public dollars that are freed up by some of those areas being deferred could potentially create a few more pots of money that could help out other individuals. If there's a lowest priority home within this plan that frees up a few tens of thousands of dollars of public money, as well as perhaps a few tens of private money. I mean, we've got individuals that a few $1,000s of extra relief due to that funding could be more wisely used. It just seems like
That's an excellent question, and John Goodrich is going to explain this.
We have, over the last couple of decades, done town-wide outreach surveys 3 times, starting back in the mid-2000s and then twice since then. The last time was last year. When we did the one last year, we assumed that it would prioritize areas that definitely needed sewer and others that perhaps would not. We were wrong. The interest and the need, because of cesspools, substandard, and old systems, is spread through every single area of the town. So what the engineers have been able to come up with is designs locating the collection system and the pump stations, so that, yes, there are some areas that are more expensive than others, but that's been true in every phase so far. But the overall cost is an affordable one, and there is no area that really should be left out.
So just one quick follow-up. Have you examined a 90% or 85% scenario that would produce the level of nutrient loading that protects the environment?
Nutrient loading isn't one of the things that analysis can do. It's really more, are we serving the people who are interested and have the older systems, the cesspools and so on.
Thank you.
Sure.
PS is pump station, and a P is a grinder pump. Those will be, the grinder pumps are below ground, and the pump stations are, depending on the area, are either below ground or above ground. In that area, I believe it's would be a smaller pump station. Our engineer is not here, but he's supposed to be arriving shortly, so that's a good question for him. But we're looking at that area for some alternatives too. So just to let you know that those plans that are out there are preliminary designs, and we're working on trying to make every section of town affordable and reasonable as possible, and looking at all the options. So
I've got a complicated one from online for you guys. What residual capacity remains for new uses once existing homes are connected? And does that capacity break down to total housing bedrooms or businesses?
could you repeat that, please?
What residual capacity remains for new uses once existing homes are connected is the first half. Are there extra gallons after we're done? Yeah.
The answer is yes, and it's about 15% of the total. It has been determined based upon the trends for growth from growth management over the last decade or so, and the forecasts going forward. So it is based upon the town's needs that will be managed through growth management.
And then for the capacity that's left over, so that goes to bedrooms or businesses first?
There's I don't think there's a simple answer to that because there's a whole process through growth management with balances in there that are heavily weighted towards affordable and community housing, but also towards economic development. Then there's an economic development permit approval process through the Board of Selection, housing approval processes, and so on. So the answer is yes and yes.
That's Susan?
On conservation. But years ago, I was on the CONSCOM. So I know that there are areas of great sensitivity. And I remember sitting on the order of conditions for the station that's out at Claps Pond. And that was really difficult with the then Director of Public Works at the time. But we had a strong committee, and so we were able to hold lines on various things. So I'm thinking about the soccer field. And I know there's some isolated wetlands around there on both sides of it. I know that it floods across the road from Seagull's, what we called Seagull Stadium. Used to be an old football field across from Schenck Painter. So I'm thinking about all the isolated wetlands that we have. Somebody just mentioned Henchy Lane. I know there's always been a lot of flooding out the back there by Old Colony into Henchy Lane and off of Route 6 into that area. So how are you going to handle all those very, very sensitive areas when we're putting in this sewer system? And maybe you should ask a question.
Well, I know that part of this has to go through DEP and the whole process, so every piece of it will have to be reviewed closely. The town does own Montefield. Oh. Well, we've spoken to John Giorgio about it, but we'll
It's
obviously look
back.
at that again. Oh, John Goodrich has some comments on that.
One of the 5 articles that relate to the sewer that will be on the special town meeting warrant November 9th is to ask the legislature to make an amendment there. So it is clear that it can be used for subsurface disposal with recreation continued on top, because town council's opinion is that the current language, it may only be for recreation, but that change does not cause the town to lose the ownership of that parcel.
Can I piggyback on something Susan said? I think I brought this up at the last meeting. And you're going to have to sell this at town meeting. So this is a critical question. Do we have any baseline data right now for this? I know you had the slide of Pilgrim Lake with the algae, but do we have any real data to show that we have a problem? And would we have baseline data to show that this project would mitigate that problem? I think that would be a very, very important step for the town to take prior to November 9th, that we have some real science that we can all make our decisions based on that science.
Right, and you're
kind of an
correct.
extension.
We may not have we're not currently identified as a nitrogen sensitive area by
Right.
DEP, but we certainly know that the science shows us that cesspools pollute, and they not only contribute nitrogen, but contaminants, and bacteria, and viruses that are going right into our groundwater, our harbor, and our wetlands. But we will be looking, I'll look more closely with what we can find with Cape Cod Commission and other towns to make sure we bring more science forward.
If I can ask a remedial question, I try really hard not to think about these things. So now that we have to think about them, we have a condo association that has two systems. Where does it hook up? I mean, it doesn't go to each individual unit, right? Do you bypass the existing septic system at some point and connect from there? Or how does it actually work?
Yep. So if you have a condo, most condos are using one shared system. So if you have two shared systems, you probably have two connections. And you may have to pay different, the betterments will all be shared, and we'll have to work out those details when the engineers look at the specific parcels. But usually with the condos, pretty much it will be based on the flow to the entire property, and then the condo will figure out, all right, people with 2 bedrooms are going to pay this much, and people with 3 bedrooms are going to pay this much. And then the sewer stubs will be brought right to your right to the property line, wherever that may be. If the systems can be combined into one, even better. So it depends a lot on the specific location. A good question.
I've got another online question. So these costs are based on all of the grants being paid in full and all being awarded. How are our costs going to be affected if not?
As has been true with the previous phases, we don't know what the final award of grants are when we make the applications, but we will know what the grants and subsidies are long before there's a shovel in the ground or any approval by a town board to spend any money. So that's the best answer that we can give, other than the fact that the estimates that we're using in the financial model are based upon the current data from the funding sources, including what they have been giving out this year, what they're projecting for next year, for grant percents, subsidy amounts, and loan interest rates.
And then the one more from online, get some of these answered. For properties on an ACO, how is that money applied to the eventual sewer connection fee?
Funds that have been collected under an ACO agreement between the property owner and the town are estimated betterments. So when the property becomes connected and water and sewer charges a betterment, they have that chunk as their first payment. It's not applied to the connection, it's applied to the betterment charge. So when a new property is placed on an ACO, we give them an estimated payment schedule based on their number of bedrooms with that same multiplier you saw up on the slide, times 110 per bedroom, times the current rate that they're charging for betterments. And then we break that out over 20 years. They get on an ACO making the first payment and get a bill from the town annually. And those funds are collected in an interest-bearing account awaiting their connection. So again, at the time that they are bettered by the town, they have some money in reserve as the first payment on the betterment. And I believe at that point, the balance is eligible for 20-year payment plan as well.
I've got one more here. We just had a whole bunch come in on some confusion. So for condo associations, so if there's 3 buildings that connect to one tank, people are to understand that then the private installer will connect the 3 units to the one stub?
It depends on the property, but that's generally what we're trying to do is one stub is generally what we're trying to bring to each property line.
Couple quick things. If you run the sewer system by my condos and my Title V is working past its inspection, do I have to pay the betterment fee? Title V is fine, it passes inspection. If the town runs their sewer line down my road, do I have to pay a betterment fee?
How old is your current system? When was it installed?
I only bought it 5 years ago, and so.
So if the system was installed according to Board of Health records, After 2000, and your system's working fine and it passes all inspections, you do not have to pay a betterment and you do not have to connect until it does not pass
But
inspection.
if it was put in before 2005 and it still passes inspection, do you have to pay the betterment fee?
As long as it's not a cesspool or a substandard system from years ago, then you can delay the connection cost, but you're going to have to start paying the betterment cost once it's available in your neighborhood.
And the other question is, out of the $75 million that you're proposing here, how much of that is going to be to improve the system that we have right now?
To improve the current
The
system.
current system that we have right now. So we didn't have the fiasco like we had last year. You know, you have all these pictures up there and all the charts and everything else. We should have pictures of is I was at Sal's restaurant and I walked out of there into a puddle of raw sewage in the street and a dollar sign up there, how much money this town lost because the system we have right now is not functioning properly. We should get that functioning correctly before we even think about expanding it.
And that's a good point. It was very sad for any of us that love this town to see those sewer trucks and pumper trucks in the middle of a hot summer day. It was just awful. We certainly never want that to happen again. The modernization fee money is already, it's being covered by the Cape Cod Water Protection Fund. And we're modernizing the system downtown so that this never happens again. Obviously, if it happens again, we're putting in protective measures so that we can decrease the downtime and get things back up and running. We have all these new alarms. Technology has changed in the last 20 years since we've installed the system. And we have alarms that are going to alert DPW there's a problem quicker, and we'll be able to respond to it. And no, I hear you. It was not a.
So is the money already appropriated to fix what we have now, or is part of that the 75 million to go to fix what we have now?
No, 75 million is focused more on the expansion, and the modernization project is being funded by the Cape Cod and Islands Water Protection Fund. That process is going on right now as we speak. We have a company out here replacing those tanks, doing studies. I don't know what that's going. We're off the generator. Okay. Oh, yeah, hold on. Let's
add one thing for you there. At the town meeting that you had in April, there was a $2.2 million authorization that came from the Cape Fund. That's going to the existing system. At the November special town meeting, the first of the sewer articles will be an additional 2.2 million that will go to work at the central vacuum station.
So it's additional 2.2 million on top of the 75 million.
Yes.
Do you guys have an alternative location for that sensitive area that was brought up on the soccer field instead of taking a soccer field away from the town and putting it in between two wetlands? Or is there not a plan B?
Rob, you looked at an alternative?
So we have looked at other alternative locations. One is right across the street from the treatment plant site.
That's Shankpainter Pond. Okay.
So it's another resource area there as well.
Not ideal.
No, which is why we ended up selecting the soccer field as the preferred alternative.
And there's not a way to accommodate it at the current treatment plant site in the back. I know we just added a tank, right? A huge expansion, and there's not any room to add that.
Right. The treatment plant itself is surrounded by wetlands as well.
No, I know that, yeah.
And then there's also an old landfill cap. It used to be the old burn dump. So when the original treatment plant was built, it took all the ash material and the old landfill material, pushed it up on the sides and then capped it.
Mm-hmm.
That's another obstacle at the existing treatment plant that we have.
Okay.
Any more questions? If people do want to, I do want to invite any neighborhoods that want us to meet with you and go on site and answer questions for your neighborhood. We have a bunch of meetings coming up in the next couple of weeks. Contact me, connect with me after this, and I'll give you my card and we can set something up. There's also, we have some time. If there's no further questions, we can go around and look at any of the maps and property, and you might have some more specific questions for your neighborhood.
Yeah, I can, if we're gonna have a conversation over here. All right, we can ask them over there. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Have a great night.